Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes only. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. The story explores mature themes and situations, and reader discretion is advised. It was one of those rare, quiet evenings when I had finally found a moment to myself. The sun was setting gently, casting a warm orange glow across the living room. I had just stepped out of the shower and wrapped myself in a soft, comfortable robe. The house smelled faintly of lavender from the candles I had lit earlier. I was enjoying the calm after a long day, scrolling through my phone on the couch, feeling relaxed and at ease. Suddenly, an unexpected sound broke the peaceful silence: the sharp knock at my front door. My heart jumped a little. Visitors were rare at this hour, especially unannounced. I wasn't expecting anyone. Wrapping the robe tighter around me, I stood up and walked cautiously toward the door. Peeking through the peephole, I saw him, my neighbor's son, Jake. He was maybe in his early 20s, with a friendly but slightly anxious look on his face. We had exchanged polite hellos before in passing, but we weren't exactly close. So, seeing him standing there like this, at my door, caught me completely off guard. Taking a deep breath, I unlocked and opened the door, careful to cover myself with the robe as best as I could. "Hey, Jake," I greeted him, trying to sound casual despite the sudden flutter of nerves. "Is everything okay?" Jake shifted his weight from one foot to the other, glancing down for a moment before meeting my eyes. "Hey, yeah. I'm sorry to bother you like this," he said, voice low and hesitant. I really needed to talk to someone." I could see the unease in his face. Something was clearly wrong, but I wasn't sure if I should invite him in or just listen from the doorway. The fact that I was only in a robe added to my uncertainty, but his expression was enough to make me want to help. "Come in," I said after a brief pause, stepping aside to let him enter. "You don't have to stand outside in the cold." Jake gave a small, grateful smile and stepped inside quickly. Closing the door behind him, I motioned toward the couch. "Make yourself comfortable." "What's going on?" As he sat down, the awkwardness of the situation hit me again, me in a robe, and him, the neighbor's son, sitting in my living room. But the genuine worry in his eyes softened that awkwardness a little. Sometimes, life throws unexpected moments your way, and all you can do is take them as they come. What was about to unfold, I had no idea. But one thing was certain: this night was going to be far from ordinary. Jake sat on the couch, still looking a bit uncomfortable, and I tried to ease the tension in the room. I poured him a glass of water, hoping to offer some comfort, but the silence hung heavy between us. "So, what's going on?" I finally asked, trying to sound casual but genuinely concerned. He took a deep breath and ran a hand through his messy hair. "It's kind of personal," he said, avoiding my gaze for a moment. I wasn't sure who else to turn to. I nodded slowly, signaling that I was listening and that he could trust me. Despite the awkwardness of the moment, me in my robe, him sitting across from me, I reminded myself that sometimes people just need a kind ear. "It's about my dad," Jake started. "He's been acting strange lately. More than usual. There's been a lot of tension at home, and I'm not sure how to handle it." I could tell the worry in his voice was real. It was hard to imagine someone so young carrying such a heavy burden. The vulnerability in him made the room feel smaller, more intimate, and suddenly the fact that I was in a robe didn't seem as important. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said softly. "Do you want to talk about it?" Jake hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I guess. It's just, sometimes I feel like I'm the only one holding things together. My mom's stressed, my dad's distant, and I don't know where to turn." We sat there in silence for a moment. I noticed how the tension seemed to ease just a bit, like sharing a secret had lifted some weight off his shoulders. Suddenly, a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "I didn't mean to come in like this," he said, gesturing to my robe. "You looked really comfortable, and here I am bringing drama." I laughed softly, shaking my head. "It's okay. Life's messy sometimes. Besides, I'm glad you came. Sometimes a little drama keeps things interesting." That made him smile wider, and for the first time since he arrived, the nervous edge in his eyes faded just a little. The awkwardness between us began to shift into something warmer, a connection forged by honesty and shared humanity. As the night grew darker outside, I realized this unexpected visit was no longer just about a knock on the door or a robe. It was the beginning of something neither of us saw coming. Jake took another deep breath, steadying himself before continuing. "It's more than just my dad acting strange," he said quietly. "There's something else, something I haven't told anyone." I leaned forward slightly, curious and concerned. The dim light of the living room softened his features, making him look more vulnerable than before. "You can tell me. I'm here to listen." He hesitated a moment, then looked me in the eyes. I think my dad might be in some kind of trouble. Like, serious trouble. He's been disappearing at odd times, and when he comes back, he looks different. Like he's been through something." My heart skipped. This was no longer a simple family problem. It sounded far more serious. "Have you tried talking to him about it?" Jake shook his head. "No, and I don't think I can. He's shutting me out, and Mom's too scared to ask. I don't know who else to turn to. I thought maybe you might understand, or help." I blinked, caught off guard by the trust he was placing in me. The neighbor's son, whom I barely knew, was opening up about something so heavy in my living room while I was still wearing my robe. Despite the odd circumstances, I felt a surge of protectiveness. "You did the right thing coming here," I said gently. "Sometimes, just talking about it helps, even if you don't have all the answers yet." Jake nodded, his eyes glistening. "Yeah, I needed to say it out loud." We sat quietly for a moment, the gravity of the situation settling between us. This wasn't just a casual visit anymore, it was the start of something deeper. I wondered how this night would change everything for him, for me, and for what was yet to come. As the night deepened, the tension between us slowly began to shift. Jake seemed to relax a little, his shoulders less tense, his eyes less guarded. It was as if sharing his worries had lifted some invisible weight off his chest. I found myself drawn into his story, feeling a mix of sympathy and curiosity. We talked for hours about his family, his fears, his hopes. I shared bits about myself too, opening up more than I usually would to a neighbor's son. The conversation flowed naturally, bridging the gap between us. The awkwardness of earlier melted away, replaced by a growing sense of connection and trust. At one point, Jake glanced at me and smiled softly. "I never thought I'd find someone who would actually listen," he admitted. "Thanks for being here." His gratitude touched me deeply. There was something honest and raw about this moment, two strangers finding comfort in each other's presence on a quiet evening. I realized how lonely we both might have been in our own ways. For a brief moment, I caught myself looking at him differently, beyond just the neighbor's son, beyond casual acquaintance. There was a subtle warmth in his eyes, a vulnerability that made my heart beat a little faster. I quickly looked away, feeling a flutter of something unfamiliar but undeniable. The robe I wore suddenly felt less like a shield and more like a symbol of this unexpected intimacy. A night that began with surprise and awkwardness was now unfolding into something quietly profound. Whatever this was between us, I sensed it wasn't just a one-time conversation. It was the start of something new, something that might change everything. As the evening wore on, the conversation between Jake and me grew more relaxed and open. I could tell he was feeling a little better just by being heard, and that made me feel unexpectedly connected to him. The worries that had weighed on him seemed to lighten, if only a little. Suddenly, Jake shifted in his seat and looked at me with a tentative smile. "You know," he said quietly, "it's kind of late, and I don't really want to go back home right now. Would it be okay if I stayed for a while? I just need some space." I blinked, surprised by his request. Part of me hesitated, there was a line here, and I was still in a robe, after all, but another part of me understood completely. Sometimes when things feel overwhelming, having someone else around can make all the difference. "Yeah," I said softly, setting my phone aside. "You can stay. There's no need to go back if you don't want to." His relief was clear in the way he exhaled, the tension easing from his body. "Thanks," he said simply. I realized that this wasn't just about helping him through a tough moment. It was becoming something more personal, something that required trust and vulnerability from both of us. We settled into a quieter rhythm, No more awkward silences, no pretenses. Just two people sharing a fragile space, finding comfort in each other's presence on a night neither of us would forget. The warmth of the room and the closeness between us made the boundary between neighbor and friend, between familiarity and something more, begin to blur. And as I looked at him sitting there, I wondered quietly, what was I getting myself into? The quiet between us stretched, charged with something neither of us dared to name yet. Jake's presence felt like an electric current in the room, familiar but thrillingly new. I could sense the hesitation in both of us, that delicate line between friendship and something more. As we talked softly, our eyes met more often, lingering longer. The air was thick with unspoken feelings, and I felt my heart pounding louder than before. Wearing just a robe, exposed yet strangely empowered, I realized how vulnerable and alive I felt in that moment. Jake reached out instinctively, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. His fingers were gentle, warm, and the simple touch sent a shiver down my spine. I didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned in slightly, the distance between us melting away. Words became unnecessary as we both understood what was happening, lines being crossed, boundaries bending. The tension that had built all evening found release in a subtle, electric kiss. It was tentative at first, cautious, but soon grew more confident, more desperate. In that instant, the world outside ceased to exist. It was just him and me, the quiet room, and the raw emotion that neither of us had expected but now couldn't deny. Despite the rush of excitement, a part of me whispered caution. This could change everything, for better or worse. But in that moment, surrendering to the feeling seemed impossible to resist. We had crossed a line I had sworn I'd never approach, but he had stepped over it first. And, somehow, I was glad I followed. The moment we crossed that invisible line, everything changed. The soft glow of the room felt warmer, charged with an energy I couldn't ignore. But as quickly as the thrill had come, a wave of reality rushed in. Jake pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine for some sign, confusion, regret, or perhaps something else. I felt the weight of what had just happened settle between us. It wasn't just a fleeting moment anymore, it was a turning point. I wrapped my robe tighter around myself, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt, not just physically, but emotionally. Questions flooded my mind. What did this mean for us? For my life? For the boundaries I thought were clear? Jake's voice was soft. I didn't mean to make things complicated, he said quietly. I didn't know how else to cope. I nodded slowly, understanding more than I let on. This was messy, unexpected, and maybe even a little reckless. But beneath all that, there was a raw need for connection, for understanding. For a moment, we just sat there in silence, the weight of unspoken feelings hanging heavy. The night outside seemed darker, quieter, but inside, everything was loud, my heart pounding, my thoughts racing. I wondered if what we had done would be a secret, a moment frozen in time, or the beginning of something neither of us could predict. I knew things couldn't go back to how they were before, but the future was uncertain, and that both scared and excited me. As Jake finally stood up to leave, I felt a strange mix of loss and hope. Whatever came next, nothing would be the same again. Jake lingered by the door, hesitating like he wanted to say more but wasn't sure how. I could feel the weight of unspoken questions filling the space between us. Finally, he spoke quietly. I don't know what this means, but thank you for being there tonight. I smiled softly, feeling a strange warmth despite the uncertainty. Neither do I admitted. But sometimes, life throws unexpected moments at us. What matters is how we choose to face them. He nodded, and for a moment, it felt like we shared a silent understanding, a fragile promise to navigate whatever came next, together or apart. As the door closed behind him, I stood there wrapped in my robe, the quiet house suddenly feeling both emptier and fuller all at once. The night had changed everything. The unexpected knock, the conversation, the crossing of boundaries, it was all part of a new chapter. Would this secret stay hidden, or would it become something more? Would we find comfort or chaos? Only time would tell. But one thing was clear, That night marked the beginning of a journey neither of us anticipated, a journey where feelings, choices, and consequences would intertwine in ways I was only just beginning to understand. And somehow, despite the fear and confusion, I was ready to see where it led. 34.